Um,
Hi,
that's Brittany.
that's Jonathan.
So today we're going to be going over the Wednesday portion of the lesson, and so there's no readings to do for the Wednesday portion. And it starts off by saying Samson had physical strength, but his weakness in his character got the better of him, and he wasn't able to accomplish as much as he could have if he had stayed true to God. All right. And they want us to read the punchlines in this week's lesson.
I don't think we're gonna read over all the punchlines. You guys can read it. So the point of this exercise is to read through the punchlines and to pick one that's the most relevant to you right now, and then explain why and reflect on why it's important to you at the moment.
Which one did you pick?
I picked Job 31 verse 6 to 8.
Cool. I picked Hebrews 11 verse 32 to 34. What difference?
You picked the longest one.
Yes, I did. You have a problem with that one?
No, it's fine. Okay, so I picked Job, which is let God weigh me in honest scales, and he will know that I am blameless. If my steps have turned from the path, if my heart has been led by my eyes, or if my hands have been defiled, then may others eat what I have sown, and make my crops be uprooted.
Interesting. Why does the scripture seem to be so relevant to you now?
I think for me it was the fact that I truly have a yearning to do everything that he wants me to do, whether I want to do it or not. And this verse kind of explains that, like, even if it's not good for me, if I go astray, then give me the consequences that come with that, because it's my fault and I'm okay with accepting those consequences if I go against your will, because it's like deep inside I want to follow his will. And right now I think that's really relevant to me, that I'm trying really hard to figure out what he wants for me in my life. And I'm like, if I do something wrong, I want him to tell me, and I will accept those consequences openly, because I do want to follow his will. Yeah.
For me, like I said, I picked Hebrews 11 verse 32 to 34, and it says, "And what more shall I say? I do not have time to tell about Gideon, Barak, Samson, and Jephthah, about David and Samuel, and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, and gained what was promised, who shut the mouths of lions, quenched the fury of the flames, and escaped the edge of the sword, whose weakness was turned to strength, and who became powerful in battle and routed foreign armies."
So explain to me why that's relevant to you right now.
Once you let God turn your weakness into strength, nothing can stop you. He can use your weakness to showcase his amazing strength. Wow, my writing is bad. Change you to be a great worker for him, to move mountains in his name. So yeah, that verse means a lot to me, because it's pretty much saying that no matter who you are, where you come from, if you let God work in your life, he can turn you into the great heroes and prophets that we read about in the Bible. Just look at David. David came from a lowly shepherd boy, and he, wanted to please God, and he let God work through his life, and he was arguably one of the greatest kings Israel had ever seen. All right, they said Saul has killed his thousands, but David has tens of thousands. All right, Joshua was a slave in Egypt, and he led the most successful military campaign in history. Man conquered a whole entire country, in a single year campaign with very few defeats. All right, and he is one of the very few humans on record, to tell God, "Listen to me," and God actually listened to him because he commanded it. All right, he told God, "God, cause the sun to stand still," and God listened to him. It's recorded as one of the only times, so a few times, that God actually listened to a human's command just like that. All right. So that's how that verse means. That's how that verse is relevant to me now.
Going back to the beginning of the question, I was talking about saying Samson had physical strength, but his spiritual weakness got the best of him. Do you think that spiritual strength is worth more than physical strength?
Absolutely. So there's, as someone put it, spiritual and mental strength are equal. Okay, a strong body produces a strong mind, and a strong mind helps to maintain a strong body. All right, so they go hand in hand. But above that, spiritual strength will give you strength beyond a strong mind, a strong body, because God can bless anyone with. Samson was the strongest man who ever lived, but that was only because he was blessed by God. Solomon was the wisest man who ever lived, but that was only because he was blessed with divine wisdom. So, as you were saying, spiritual strength is much greater than anything else, because look at the three Hebrew boys. It wasn't their physical or mental strength that kept them from being burned alive in a furnace that heated brick white hot. So it was their spiritual strength.
If you continue after that, it says he could have accomplished much more had he learned to control his passions and let God lead. I think that in the age group that we're teaching, so high school kids from 9th to 12th grade, self-control is a really big thing that they're learning how to use.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that I want them to reflect on some of the things that God is telling them to give up or to control their desire for it, but they're not willing to give up right now.
Like, what are the things that you guys struggle with? What are the passions, the desires that you were starting to have now that you're starting to realize that you want, that you're struggling with? And figure out, then you need to ask God, like, for help to control these passions and desires, because control is what we all seek. Control over our demons, over the passions that try to take control of our lives.
So I think that personally, when it comes to things that I know that God is asking me to give up or that are distracting me from letting God lead, I know that my phone and social media are really bad for me for that, because I read my Bible on my phone most of the time, and then I get distracted. I'm back on Facebook, and then I'm like, I don't even know what I was reading, and I know that I should cut back on that and let God lead me to where He wants me to go instead of distracting my mind with mindless scrolling.
And memes.
Yeah, and cute little bunnies and stuff.
But also, another way that you could look at that is asking certain people. That's a lot of times we forget that certain people can be a great distraction to you. And, you're passionate because you like to hang out with your friends, you like to chill with certain people, but sometimes those people can be pulling you away from what is most important in life. And sometimes you just need to take a couple steps back and reanalyze your relationship with God, and then grow closer to Him. And then you can, you know, get closer with your friends after you get closer to God, because God comes first in everything.
So if I can add to that, I know that with especially in high school times, and even before or after that in your life, friends are something that are really important in your life, because if you don't have friends that you can talk to about anything that's going on in your life, then you start to feel really lonely, and it's almost like detrimental to your mental health. And although if you are alone, you can rely on God, it's also important to find people that you can talk about God with, that you can together strengthen each other in your walk with God. And those friends that are maybe pulling you away, let's say you have friends from church that every time you hang out, you don't really talk about the Bible, you don't really talk about God, you just met at church. They might be feeling the same way, that they're being pulled away by you and you're being pulled away by them. Bring it up with them and be like, hey, why don't we do a Bible study together? Or hey, like, do you read any cool Bible plans? Like, something that'll bring you both to talk about what you strongly believe in and bring each other closer to God.
Yeah, because it's sad to say that most people, when they go to church, 90% of their conversation does not revolve around God or the Bible or anything spiritually related, which is kind of sad. So when you see your friends, ask them, so did you read anything cool? Like Brittany said, did you have any cool Bible plans? How's your walk with God going? Tell me about it. And see, that may be a personal question, but it shouldn't be that personal. I think it's going well. That's good. That's good. We're not judging people. We just want to check up on them.
Or even like start. Oh, I know that for me, if I don't know what to talk about with someone and it's like an awkward conversation, I'm like, I want them to spark a conversation that'll get me to argue with them. I love arguing with people.
Yes.
And not necessarily to argue I like discussing with people. Not
arguing.
I don't argue. I discuss. I'm open-minded enough to listen to their point of view.
So an open-minded argument.
Yes, okay? Ask them about something that they're really not sure about. Be like, hey, what's something in the Bible that you really don't understand and you think might be wrong? And get that conversation going and be open-minded to how they feel so that you can both grow together.
Yes, because a text I'd like to bring up, and I've brought up before, is iron sharpeneth iron. And so the countenance of a man's friend, the countenance of a friend shall sharpen each other. I kind of butchered that at the very end, but you understand what I'm trying to get at. If you guys don't seek to sharpen each other's, spiritually, you guys will not grow spiritually. And that's something from someone who grew up in the church. That's something that most people who grow up in the church struggle with, is they're not striving to go closer because they've just known church their entire life. It's just day in, day out. It feels the same. They get kind of stuck in that rut. Continually push your spiritual self further, just like you'd push yourself physically further by going to the gym and conditioning or running, or mentally further by actually picking up a subject of a book you've never read and reading it, or trying to take on a new language. So that's all we have for the Wednesday portion of this week's lesson. Keep studying, keep trying to sharpen each other's countenance, try to make sure that you guys push yourselves further, and enjoy reading God's word.
And try to figure out what's holding you back in your life. Where is God leading you? Are you letting God lead, or are you following your worldly desires?
Amen.
All right. Stay in school.
Sabbath school. Stay in Sabbath school.